My goodness, there are so many sleeper agents in my community. That being said, I probably should have seen that coming, considering a lot of the stuff that we cover is basically along those lines, and I could see a lot of the things that I enjoy within the Project Moon series, so that makes sense. Not sure if I'll do like a deep dive into the Project Moon stuff, because I've got a lot of stuff going on right now. But it does certainly seem interesting, I'll give it that. I was, however, suggested to check out this video by Suno about the collab between Limbus Company as well as Arknights, which seems like a match made in heaven, especially considering like how well the stories are written. And I guess the directions that they go in pretty similar, but very different and unique in their own way, which is something that I really appreciate about the two series, being able to set themselves apart from the sea of media of stuff that is kind of similar. But of course, before we get into this reaction, always make sure to go and support the original creator before watching. Link very top of the description, like always.
Even now, I'm still genuinely surprised this collab happened. Like, I read all the Arknights stories related to this event to prepare for it, played through it again, and yet I'm still a little shocked this came to be. Because Arknights is legitimately one of my favorite games of all times. Not one of my favorite gachas, nah, favorite games. I think it's a masterpiece. So to see a game I've been playing for almost 5 years before I even got into making videos, collab with a series I've been...
Holy man, Suno really loves this series. And hey, I could certainly see why you would fall in love that much with a series like this, and especially how deep the lore is. The deeper the lore, the more people can, I guess, explore it, and the more attached that you can become to something. It's really hard to do that when a lot of things within a series are just more so surface level, and they're trying to tell more like a shorter story in a way. Now, of course, it's not to say that those can't be impactful, but the more that you can dig deep, obviously the bigger chance it has of really hooking people to a series. I myself have been playing OG Arknights as well as Enfield, and honestly the OG tower defense gameplay, which I said I wasn't really a fan of initially, I've kind of grown more accustomed to it. It certainly has a fair bit of a learning curve to it, but once you get it, you start to see what you have to do, and you can start progressing. That being said, holy shit, guys. The Abe Mujika collab, I don't know how you say it, is an absolute nightmare for any new doctor out there. If anybody is like a fan of the OG series and they came for the collab to Arknights, man, you have no idea what you're walking into. It is crazy how difficult some of those stages can get. Until you figure out that you could probably just borrow somebody else's Wizardel or Tragodia and trivialize the stages, and yeah, then you can stop losing your sanity in real life and start losing your sanity in game.
Playing for, at this point, 4 years? Literally feels like I have used all of my luck to manifest this, and because of that, in the next 8 days, a plane's gonna crash into my home and obliterate me. I don't know. But because I've been playing these games for so long, there's a lot for me to explain when it comes to the lore of this event. Because no exaggeration, the difference in this event story to people who know the lore of Arknights compared to those who don't is massive. People who don't know the lore will likely view this as an interesting collab story that gave some hints of further developments in the story and was done in such a way to where people who are only vaguely familiar with either game can enjoy it. But if you know Arknights lore, unironically, this event has some of the most important lines to answer the main question the entire story is built around.
Really? That's kind of crazy to put that in like a collab event, but I guess Arknights is crazy enough to do something like that.
Now, if you know absolutely nothing about Arknights lore, you probably think I am crazy after saying that, because at the end of the day, the Seaborn, what this event is centered around, ain't even like a main story thing, bro, they're a side event. So then the question is, how is this event so important for Arknights lore, yet someone who doesn't really know it can still enjoy it? How can those two coexist? Well, the short answer is, PM has a go-to team of writers. The long answer is the rest of this video. Because when it comes to Arknights, the best part to me is the world building, but when it comes to explaining the game's story or introducing people to it, that's also in a sense its greatest hindrance. Arknights' world building is so interconnected to where if I wanted to talk about something that's happened in the plot of one area, I'll more than likely need to bring up something else within the story as context. And that is what makes the world building feel real, but maybe it's a little too real because the rest of this video is dedicated mostly to explaining Arknights lore, as there's just that much lore to properly and fully explain why this event hits harder when you know the lore. Now,
well, it's a similar situation to real life history. When you look at why a particular thing happened, there's always going to be an origin as to why it led to that, and that origin has an origin, which then has another origin, and it's all interconnected in a weird mishmash of things. You can kind of delve into one specific topic, but at the end of the day, it's going to lead you to something else.
I am going to break down the egos and why they're near perfect matches for each of the sinners, but the rest of this video is going to be about Arknights' lore, because I think this event was made with utter love for its story. And sure enough, my thoughts on that were confirmed when Ji-hoon, the CEO of Project Moon and director of Limbus Company, whipped out his Arknights account on stream and showed how developed it is.
Holy shit! He has all of the level 90? Oh my goodness, bro. Level 90 is kind of insane to reach. I don't think most people will have like a bunch of 6 stars like this at level 90. Feels kind of like a waste of resources, unless of course if you have like the packs or whatever that boost your operator to max level. I think they sell for like $30 or something. It feels a little more realistic to do that, but hey, I mean, you're also like the CEO of a company. You probably can afford it. Now, of course, I'm still relatively new to Arknights, but my understanding at least is for most people, probably raising your 6 stars to like Elite 2 level 60 is kind of the maximum you'd want to go, because I think that's when they unlock the module system. But of course, any more experienced doctors out there can correct me if I'm wrong about this information.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it. This event came to be because they love Arknights. So much to where it perfectly encapsulates what the story is about, and I want to explain that to anyone who doesn't know the lore. And on the other side, I want to explain what this collab has done that's important for Arknights' lore for the Arknights players who haven't touched Limbus Company. And there are going to be spoilers, however, I will mark them out for which episodes/events they spoil and where to skip in the video to avoid them. Though, I won't lie, most of the video will be spoilers. It's hard to explain what the story is built around without doing it. And when it comes to spoilers, here's something I want to say that I don't think you need to follow it, but I do wish to get my thoughts out there. And it's that I love Arknights' story, but it's rough to get into, especially when you go from Limbus. In Limbus, the stories are mostly voice acted and are relatively quick to get through. In Arknights, there's no voice acting in the story aside from really rare occurrences, and the word count of the entire story is longer than reading the Bible front.
Yeah, if you're not used to visual novel storytelling, this is gonna be a bit of a hard sell. Like, I think a lot of casual gamers will unfortunately not have the patience to stick around for anything like this. And admittedly, the only reason why I have been reading like the cutscenes and whatnot throughout the Arknights main story, as well as some of the events, is because I know for a fact, like, the quality is essentially guaranteed. I know there's good shit hiding there, so I'm there for it. But if I didn't know that, then I probably wouldn't be here. In fact, I did play Arknights when it released and dropped it because I didn't know that.
To back 3 times over. By the way, I am not making a joke, I am being dead ass. To me, it's not really too big a deal and the newer events have had much better pacing, so I'm fine with it. But to people who are looking into playing the game and reading the story, after you heard me say that, there's a non-zero chance you decided you're never gonna touch the game. Which is why I want to say that if you're looking into playing Arknights, hearing spoilers about the story might not be terrible because it could make you interested enough to actually play it.
Yeah, that is a fair point. That is something, if Surrey were here, they would also say that they actually do, well, they don't hate spoilers for like endings and stuff, because especially if it's a series that they're not interested in the first place, hearing a spoiler about a particular thing that happens or a twist can get them interested enough to want to check out that thing. And that was also kind of my thought process when it came to something like, say, Halo, for instance. A lot of people in the comment sections for like my Halo reactions were like, Zero, why are you spoiling the story for yourself? Now you won't be able to get to experience it firsthand when you're playing through the game. And I'm like, I wouldn't have played these games in the first place if I didn't know that they were this cool with like this deep lore behind all the things that happened within the story. I always just thought Halo was just like a shooter series, right? And that's not really the type of game that I enjoy playing. But now that I know that there's something that interests me there, that's how I can get invested into playing more Halo or actually playing the games. And of course, as I just said, that's the reason why I'm playing Arknights right now. And I'm not going to reiterate this, but also why I'm hoping for Enfield to sort of reach that point as well. Gotta wait for them to cook.
to take that first step. And hell, when it comes to me personally, I've experienced like half of the event stories and still enjoyed them after being spoiled about them, mainly because the community just has a fucking problem with tagging spoilers, especially considering the 6-month gap between CN and Global. But I just want to say that end of the day, if you want to get spoiled or not, that's up to you, but that was just my 2 cents as someone who knows the story. But to start off the explanation, let's talk about what the Seaborn are, the basics. This is the bare bones explanation and just gives more context to what the game explained, so no spoilers for it on that front. But the Seaborn are a collective hive mind that refer to themselves as the We Many. The main trait of them is their adaptability. Because of this, Aegir has a weapons classification system they use against the Seaborn. They separate the weapons into tiers and use the bare minimum effective weaponry against them to slow their evolution as much as possible. And the main reason this can be done is because Aegir's technology is way more advanced than any other nation in Terra, which says a lot when you look at the world. I mean, you got Victoria making steampunk mechs, Columbia pushing the boundaries of science,
well, they're basically Atlantis,
and Ursus making damn near eldritch abominations when it comes to their Emperor's blades. Yet none of them hold a candle to Aegir. Before the Seaborn went to attack, they had constant debates to find the best course of their country. They engaged with and were very talented in all of the arts, singing, sculpting, dancing, you name it. Hell, they even had plans to go into outer space, to be the first nation on Terra to do that. But it all changed when the Seaborn nation attacked. Well, not really much of a nation, more so a force of nature, but you know. However, the entirety of Aegir was derailed, and instead of focusing on going to the stars, they fully dedicated themselves to taking out the Seaborn. They view it as their duty to the rest of Terra, and thank fuck they do. Because
I mean, yeah, without the Abyssal Hunters, where exactly would people be now? Where would the world be? I haven't completely gone through... I forget the exact name of the side story, but it's the one where you get Gladia for free. I did play through enough of the story to get her, so I could use her in certain maps, and she's been incredibly helpful. But like, imagine the state of that town, but all over Terra. And you know, nobody ever really realizing what is happening, and nobody is capable enough to stop it. That would be an absolute nightmare, and make Terra an even worse place than it already is. Oh, and asking this for Serby, but for those of you guys who are like more into the lore than we are, is there at all any sort of chance that the Abyssal Hunters might have made it to Enfield or may show up in Enfield in the future? From my understanding of Abyssal Hunters, they're not long for this world, and I don't really know if they're considered infected. I think in fact Serby was reading like some sort of story about Opianus trying to get himself infected and he couldn't for some reason. So they probably wouldn't even be able to show up as a reconvener. So a bit worried there since Abyssal Hunters are just so cool aesthetically. But yeah, if you guys have any theories or any more knowledge on this, please do let me know in the comments.
Unironically, without them, everybody's dying. Yeah, this is an exaggeration, by the way. Everybody's dying. To put it into perspective, and this is not spoilers, just it's alternate timeline stuff, so don't worry. In an alternate timeline where the Seaborn had a god that got them past Aegir, they either killed or assimilated everyone on Terra. Aegir was the biggest threat. After that, people went down like dominoes, even with everyone on Terra working together, for once, to try and stop them after they became too big of a threat. But when it comes to mainline canon stuff that shows the difference between Aegir's ability to handle the Seaborn compared to the rest of the world, let's look at the Profound Silence. So at one point in time, Iberia wasn't a shithole. Surprising, I know. In fact, they had a golden age where they controlled most of the southern coastline. They were one of the most formidable nations, and their biggest strength was their navy. The technology was bolstered by Aegirians that had come to land and helped them, but those Aegirians also tried to warn Iberia. They warned them about the Church of the Deep and the Seaborn, but it really did nothing. During that time, Iberia had immense pride in themselves, that whatever happened, they would be prepared. And that arrogance was wiped away when the Profound Silence came. The best explanation for it is from the Inquisition records of it. The ocean sank into an unprecedented silence. Anomalies appeared across the shore, as violently ebbing tides and irregular waves heralded the coming of disaster. All sounds were smothered, from waves crashing against the shore to the chiming of city clock towers. All noise faded away, until the voices of the people all disappeared as well, until the wind was still. The profound silence came without a sound.
Bro, this is giving me so much nostalgia. I had like this sort of reaction towards writing. I remember when I was getting into Warhammer 40k for the first time, and I believe Bricky was like reading a paragraph from one of the books. There's just something about the composition of a sentence or a paragraph that makes it sound so much more epic, you know? Instead of just saying, oh yeah, the sea receded and we got fucked up by a bunch of monsters. It's the kind of writing that makes you want to read more. And I'm really glad that it's present here within this story.
Then what plunged Iberia into its current state was a tsunami. A tsunami that wiped out most of their naval fleet, the lighthouses, and sank the capital of Iberia. Which is why, when you look at the map of the world, where Iberia is very jagged. That's because half of it got submerged by the tsunami. The islands you can see in the sea were once peaks of mountains, and
hey, that is really cool world building right there. Honestly, I didn't even comment on it. I thought that was natural, but looking at it again, it really does just look like the ocean came up and consumed as much as it possibly could.
The seaborne took control of all of that water. Now, because Iberia had its country upended, there was a vacuum in place of the government, and this led to the Inquisition being formed, and their politics were immoral is the best way to say it. Because of the Church of the Deep, the Inquisitors took action against pretty much any Aegir that was on land, either by forcing them to leave Iberia, taking them in for questioning, or killing them. Now, at first this does seem extreme, because it is, but Irene's take is pretty much the most moral one from an Inquisitor on this.
Okay, I see. That's what I was wondering, because during the side story that I went into, I literally just went there for Gladia. But yeah, I was wondering why the Inquisitors were really angry at the fact that Skadi was an Aegir. But I suppose they kind of just linked the two events together and they were like, damn, the Aegir caused this. Even though they were trying to warn them of this happening. A classic situation.
She believes that what Iberia did was morally bankrupt, but it was needed as Iberia was a country teetering on the brink of collapse. Because of the silence in the church, and the church wasn't doing unimportant stuff to Iberia either. Before the silence, they had infiltrated Iberia's own churches and changed their religious texts to align with what they want of humanity. And after the silence, went around to people of Iberia and preached to them that their current suffering was just another step before they reached the utopia of assimilation into the we many. They essentially were drawing the blood out of an already near passing body.
Man. Okay, now a lot of what was happening in that story is making so much more sense now. I was like, what the fuck? I think this is probably the Church of the Deep's doing. Or like something is affecting these people's minds. They're really believing that, yeah, we're gonna go to salvation by walking into the ocean. Yeah, I don't think so.
But it's for this reason why what Irene was saying and doing at the village in the collapse seems extreme for Limbus players, while Arknights players could understand that it's necessary. Because the Seaborn are capable of ending the world, and the Church of the Deep is aiding them constantly and has roots so deep in Iberia to where it can never fully be drawn out. But that is it for the basic explanation. Now I want to talk about what the collab didn't cover, namely why the Seaborn came to be. So spoilers for Babel, all main story chapters before it, so 13 to 0, and Path of Life. To be fully clear, what I'm about to explain also appears in chapter 14 and 15, but if you've read Babel, that would explain this plotline and those chapters just call into it more, but I'll dive into the spoilers of those later and mark out when. But if you don't want to be spoiled, skip to here. These are major plot spoilers. But the Seaborn have the goal of survival. Above all else, they're a hive mind centered around surviving, because they are one of the very few ways to preserve civilization. The biggest plot point of Arknights is the survival of the predecessors against the observers. The predecessors are a tier 3 civilization that travels throughout the universe, and the Doctor is a part of this race. They land on Terra and start to build life up on that planet. The reason Terra has animal races is because of them. As an umbrella term, they're called the Terrans, and the predecessors brought them to Terra. And they're even the reason they look human. So essentially, to Terra, the predecessors are gods. Not within the sense of having some godlike powers or being revered by the people or anything like that. What they do is still physically possible and not many people know about them. But it's the technological differences between the predecessors and the Terrans which make the difference between these civilizations so vast.
I mean, we don't currently possess the technology, or the Terrans that we experience the story through don't currently have the tech to match the rotation of the planet to Talos 2, which was their origin planet, so that they could use the same day and night cycle in the calendars. That's kind of insane, and it's probably not even like the most powerful technology they had back then.
And the observers are, well, the best descriptor is the word of the Doctor before their amnesia. They equate civilizations and their growth, schemes, machinations, triumphs, and glory all to a tranquil forest, where a tree represents a world or a collection of planets all host to the same civilization. That tree represents all of its people on it, and in this forest, the predecessors are also just a tree. And the observers are the lumberjack. The trees do not know the origin of this lumberjack, do not know why it cuts them down, but they can do nothing to stop it. That is the difference between them. We do not know what the observers are. We do not know why they do what they do. We just know that even though the predecessors have technology that can have them travel throughout the universe, they view the difference between them and the observers as they are the lumberjack and the predecessors, hell, every civilization in the universe, are the tree. Which is also where I want to clarify. If you don't know the lore of Arknights, you may think, with this being the central conflict, it's a story like Gurren Lagann or something like that.
Well, there you go. I mean, it's not exactly that, but you could certainly see some potential similarities you could draw towards the anti-spiral. But let's see what Suno has to say here.
Humanity has to come together and go into the cosmos to fight them, and
yeah,
it's very much not like that.
Yeah.
It's a character-driven story, either from characters dying for their ideals, fighting against their fate, or atoning for what they've done and what the world has made them do, but also because the threat of the observers is not something they can fight. It is not something Terra can come together and challenge. It is something they can flee and hide from, and that is it. Not to even mention that most of Terra doesn't even know about the predecessors, let alone the observers.
It would be epic if there was something we could do against the observers, but also I feel like that would sort of ruin the point of Arknights as a series, a story. This is not how this universe works. There are no happy endings like that.
Like, for example, the reason Aegir is so advanced is because they found technology left by the predecessors. It's the reason behind their extraordinary growth. But if the predecessors are so advanced, where are they in the story? Why does Aegir, with the dregs of their technology, take center stage as the smartest nation on Terra in place of the predecessors? It's because the observers have already killed most of the ones on Terra. From the passing explanations we've heard of it, it was described as a crisis. Not a battle, not a war. A crisis where the observers came and most of the predecessors were wiped out. Only a few survived. And after the crisis, the predecessor shielded Terra with the Star Pod. It was a creation where it would pretty much be an energy barrier around Terra. It's invisible, yet it causes anything attempting to go beyond it to fail. Because of this, any aircrafts in Terra need to operate at lower altitudes, but the reason it exists is to visually shield what is happening on Terra from what is out there in the universe. It is essentially a fake sky. Because of this, in Terra, you can't find where to go by looking at constellations or anything like that in the real world. The stars are constantly shifting. The only thing you can see beyond it accurately are the twin moons of Terra. That's it. It made Terra unable to think about going out into space, minus the Aegir who were trying because they had the technology of the predecessors. But to put it into perspective, the people of Terra do not know what the word universe is. The actual world itself is a concept they cannot understand, and they're not unadvanced. They got cities and technologies equal to real-world stuff, but this star pod...
I mean, yeah, all this can form inside of this little, I guess, aquarium. You could probably use that term here. Doesn't necessarily have to be interstellar travel happening, but I guess that'd be an interesting point where, like, how did technology develop when it came to like navigation? From my understanding in the early days, it was always about like the positioning of the North Star and stuff like that. But if you don't have anything like that for Terra, then what do you do? We already have like compasses in order to tell us magnetic north. And I was going to say, you know, how do they traverse the oceans? But then thinking about it, I don't think they do, considering that's where the Seaborn are. Or at least not to that massive capacity.
Cut off space to where no one knows anything about it. It's a shield for Terra. You can break it, but that requires so much energy, and given a bit of time, it'll just repair itself. That is the level of what they were aiming to do to just survive. They had other plans as well, most of them ended in failure, but one of them was the Seaborn. The plan of what they did was to take some Fairnamuts, they are essentially gods native to Terra, and the predecessors bioengineered them to become living arcs to preserve humanity from the observers. The ones who were meant to be the ark came to be known as the Firstborn. However, the experiment ended prematurely because the observers were wiped out by most of the predecessors before it could be completed. Because of that, the Firstborn aren't doing what was intended of them. There's a few of them to talk about, but I'll only focus on two, Asharmala and the Primordial Lifespring.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I'm pretty sure Sunil got a bit backwards there with the predecessors getting wiped out by the observers instead, or maybe I misheard it. But I think that's what ended up happening. But yeah, interesting plan. I guess at the time, with the level of technology they had and the potential ideas that many different people would have had, this could be one of the results and one of the ways that they thought about it. It's not like Originium was a perfect solution, so yeah.
So, during an Igarian expedition into the Manta ruins left by the predecessors and what the Igarians believed to be the birthplace of their civilization, an Igarian named Martus made contact with Asharmala, and there he saw visions of what wiped out the predecessors, and over the course of many days of contemplation, thought that humanity was doomed. But he also saw visions of the Firstborn devouring all life and evolving to the point of even being able to feed on celestial bodies as a way to evolve and survive. He saw visions of civilization having no hope for a future, and then was shown one small possibility of survival. And because of that, he willingly ate one of Asharmala's cubs that offered to be eaten and turned into a Seaborn. From there, he escalated the growth of the Seaborn's assimilation, with the goal of just giving humanity a chance to live. He thinks Aegir and the entire world should help the Seaborn, that they are genuinely a savior for them. Because of this, the Church of the Deep was founded, and in the collab, why mayors thought they were a necessity.
Okay, I see. I'm beginning to understand now why they act the way that they do and what they believe in, because they know of this information. But obviously, to the regular people, you're just getting eaten by Seaborn. In fact, it's literally the same thing as with Originium, right? Ripathy, oh no, you're infected with basically a terminal illness. Then when you die, you explode into a bunch of dust. Not good. Not good at all. But actually, you're just being assimilated into a different universe and continuing to survive within the Originium Woods or whatever it's called. It comes in a different form, but it's basically the same idea.
So, the Church of the Deep's efforts are what led to the profound silence, because the tsunami that wiped out half of Iberia wasn't a random natural disaster. It was the Primordial Lifespring, which was a firstborn that became one with the sea after dissolving into it, and the Church of the Deep tried to revive it, causing the tsunami that wiped out Iberia. And if it could merge with Asharmala, it would cause the entirety of Terra to be flooded. Then they would be assimilated into the Wee Many. So the point of the Seaborn is, they're a possibility for survival, one avenue to survive the crisis, but because they weren't fully completed, their goal shifted from being an arc into what they are now. And what the Church of the Deep say isn't a lie. Objectively, they are a way to survive. But that returns to the central moral question of
faulty
Arknights.
way.
Is it fine for one civilization to control the fate, the trajectory, the lives of another if they do not have a way to survive what will wipe them out? And this
I mean, yeah. This is the same situation as Soba, except it's being forced upon everybody.
is a question that is expanded on and debated in the main story, and the collab gives a very direct line for that question, which, to be honest, we're yet to see even the main story of Arknights do. So this is me saying, the spoilers from here are going to include chapter 14 and 15, so if you don't want to be spoiled about those, skip to this time on screen. They are major spoilers. As I said earlier, the Doctor is one of the predecessors, though I won't call them the Doctor for now. Instead, I'll be calling them Oracle, because that's what they were known as to the predecessors, and it makes a clear distinction between the Doctor before amnesia and after amnesia.
That's fair.
They're the same person within the body and all that, but I'll be using different names to help distinguish the mental state they were in regards to amnesia. However, they came with the predecessors Satera and their closest travel companion, though in her words,
Priestess?
even explaining their relationship as intimate would be a belittlement of it, was Priestess. And just like the rest of their civilization, they were looking for a way to survive the crisis. The answer the two of them came to, what they made for civilization to survive, was Originium. Originium is the lifeblood of Terra. It's responsible for the energy of it, the development. It's what causes people to become infected, and it's what even shaped the cities of Terra to be on nomadic platforms so they can escape catastrophes which happen as a result of Originium dust. And it's even the reason the Terrans evolved to resemble humans. The entirety of Terra is shaped by Originium, and it is not natural. It was man-made by Priestess and Oracle. The possibility it gave humanity was the ability to be assimilated into its own universe, because Originium, even though it can be used for so many different purposes, is able to store vast amounts of information. That was the way to save humanity. It was so important to our Oracle, when describing what the observers did to them and what the Originium they left after was, said, "On this day, the lumberjack raised his axe as usual, and another tree fell before him. But after the lumberjack turned away, branches sprouted from the stump, and the broken branches rejoined. The clearing made by the lumberjack grew dense with trees once again, and it didn't stop there. Transparent resin engulfed a forest that only existed in stories. Soon, before you, only a beautiful amber remains.
The Originium
will
forest?
become the beacon, condensed by our civilization. If, one day, other lifeforms in the universe lose their homeland and seek a way to resolve their plight, they will witness that we once shined, we once resisted, and this is where we rest. We once delivered a gift to those who came after us, before our annihilation. Hope." But this is where Oracle and Priestess had a difference. Oracle viewed it as a possibility for life to take, a beacon of hope, but not a contract civilization signed to participate in since they were born. Originium should not be forced on civilizations like a bitter pill they need to swallow. It is simply something that, if they choose to, can save them. However, Priestess thought that to properly preserve civilization, all information needed to be stored in the assimilated universe. And this difference in ideology is what led to the turning point in the story, Babel. To give a brief explanation to set the stage, the Sarkaz were the first race on Terra to touch Originium. That made their fate tied to the assimilated universe, and whenever a Sarkaz died, they would go to that universe. And thousands of years after that connection was made, Theresa became the king of the Sarkaz. And that is not just a title. All kings have the Black Crown and can see information and memories stored of all the Sarkaz kings prior. Theresa, after going through these memories for many years, finally found that the Sarkaz are slaves to Originium, and she wanted to break that connection, to allow the fate of the Sarkaz to finally be free, to allow them to rest, because they didn't choose to go to the assimilated universe after death, but because they touched the first Originium all Sarkaz have, from the moment they were born, been bound to it after their death. So breaking it was her goal, and Babel was how she would mend the civil war with her brother and unite the Sarkaz in this goal.
I see. That makes a lot more sense than why she was so intent on studying Originium, right? In order to understand it, in order to reverse it, which led to that particular scene that just happened there, which was the Garden of Flowers that was taken out of the woods, essentially.
And to help achieve this, Kelshi woke up Oracle from their sarcophagus. They stayed in there to preserve themselves until Originium was at a point where it could be used to save civilization, but Kelshi woke them up too early. Originium was yet to grow as much as it needed to. At its current state, it cannot assimilate everyone to escape the surveillance of the observers. But the Doctor traveled the land to see Terran civilization, see what has become of life after thousands of years in stasis. The Doctor traveled the lands and came to love Terra, but also came to be ridden with guilt. Because with all the suffering caused from Originium, they were the source of it. They were the
Oh yeah, understandable. I would be too. Like, fuck. Or you're also traveling with Amia throughout this entire ordeal too, who has Telepathy, and you were kind of the cause of that. It's something that I really appreciate from the original Arknight story, and something that I'm hoping for from Enfield. You know, maybe they didn't want to tread the same path, which is why they presented it differently. But I'm hoping for something else equivalent to it, if that is the path that we've chosen. We have yet to see.
One who helped make Originium. And then later, when they learned of what Theresa planned to do, cut off the Sarkaz from Originium, essentially ending the beacon of hope right then and there, they came to a crossroads. Do they let Theresa do this and doom the predecessors that have survived in Sarkaz?
Or give Theresis a mega weapon. Oh goodness.
To death? Because her stopping the project would cut off that lifeline of Originium being able to save them. Or do they stop Theresa and condemn all of Terra to be consumed in Originium? Whatever their choice was, they held the fates of so many lives. On one path, Oracle would condemn all remaining predecessors to death and cut off a ray of hope for the entire universe, but on the other, they would have to betray Kelshi, Amia, Theresa, Babel, and the entirety of Terra they came to love. For a way to survive, not even as people, but as information within a simulated universe? Do they kill their civilization to let Terra be free with no chance to survive the coming crisis, or do they condemn all of Terra because their civilization has a chance to survive? And Oracle didn't know what to do. But this is where Priestess's influence kicked in.
You're playing God.
See, the predecessors have a brain implant called a linchpin. It helps preserve their memories and consciousness while traveling throughout the universe. It makes their consciousness come to a stimulated world where they can enter into debate with their paired companion. Imagine it as basically dreaming, and Oracle's companion was Priestess. But this comes with a risk where if one's linchpin was modified, it can nudge that person into doubt and follow what the other wants them to do. I've heard people explain it as mind control, but to me, I don't really like that explanation. I view it more as something that can nudge and push someone within a direction. And when you're at the doctor who is teetering on the edge, looking at which civilization they have to betray and kill, that linchpin means a lot. As when the doctor saw the pain that Originium caused Terra, they were consumed with guilt. What they did to try and save everyone caused the infected, catastrophe, suffering, death. It ruined people's lives. But Priestess tampered with Oracle's linchpin to have debates centered around letting the Originium project achieve its goal at whatever cost. And
holy shit. Okay, this was information that I did not know of, either that or forgot about. But my goodness, man. I suppose Priestess certainly does have her ways. That being said, I can't really agree with them, but I can understand the reasoning behind them. Because, especially from Priestess's POV, it's like, she hasn't gone on this journey. She hasn't fallen in love with Terra. She knows her original goal. And all that other stuff that happened outside of it doesn't really matter, because ultimately everybody's going to be happy in the end. We're all going to survive. Why would you choose anything else?
These debates made Oracle question themselves and, in a sense, corrupted them until they reached a breaking point and had to make a decision. I am rather fortunate. I have been able to leap across the millennia to communicate with them. I have even considered myself one of the people of this land for a time, experiencing their past and future. But in the end, I am not of here. I have begun to feel uneasy about Theresa's efforts. If the Originium project ends in failure, no. Even if it is merely postponed for a time, Theresa, Kelshi, even the future that I promised Amia, the inhabitants of this planet, some of the few life forms known to us, are but illusions that will break at the slightest touch.
This perspective is also understandable, even though he's being nudged in a particular direction. Considering all of this that he experienced should not have existed. The only reason it exists is because of Originium that he created. So in a way you could kind of view it as a byproduct, or an illusion, a mirage created by a project that he had worked on.
I have been lying to them and to myself for a very long time now. But how will I explain it to Kelshi? Or to Theresa? Or Amia?
I don't know, man. I'm so glad I'm not in your position. Actually what this is reminding me of, a bit of a spoiler for Steins Gate, but it reminds me of when Okabe is sort of going through like the different world lines, and he's experiencing all these false realities that obviously to the people experiencing those world lines is their reality. And the entire struggle of the show is him fighting against destiny and obviously trying to come to terms with all the things that he has to do in order to get back to where he needs to save people. The people that he cares about. Trying to talk around the point as much as possible here. But that's exactly what this is reminding me of. Except it's not a whole like timeline and time travel and world line thing, but it really does feel like that. To the Doctor, from his perspective, it feels like a different world line. A reality that should not have been.
Am I supposed to tell them that all the pain they have been through is the key to their salvation and they must stop fighting? That all of Terran civilization is a fleeting dream, and only by being assimilated into Originium will we have the opportunity to avert our fate? Seeing the lives of those they call the infected dissipate like smoke brings pain to my heart. It has long been a common sight on Terra, but it always marks the end of life. Sorrowful and cruel. It has been too long since I've heard a voice full of life. I can't just see them as unexpected sparks, but what I see cannot be called a warrior's death. Rather, they have given in to the Originium's assimilation, passing through death to join the assimilated universe, a chance where life can break through the deepest darkness. Should I bow in silence at their deaths, or should I quietly rejoice at the smooth progression of the project? It is for this reason that Theresa dedicates herself to her research. Kelshi, our Amaten, has also chosen to believe in the potential of Terra, chosen to resist Originium and put an end to war. But what about me? The Originium project was built upon the efforts of countless generations, and in that time, billions of our compatriots have died, all in exchange for a mere 10,000 years that I've spent waiting and waiting. And now, the flint and tinder are in my hands. After all the long years, how could I abandon it? Because Terra has left me pleasantly surprised in a few short years? Because of the choices that Theresa and Kelshi made? Even if Amia has moved me to compassion, would I not have been the selfish one all along? They awakened me to be their salvation, but in truth, I am destined to bring them to annihilation. They awakened me, their destroyer, as if I was their savior. Amia, Kelshi, what should I do? Priestess, what should I do? And those debates with Priestess sets Oracle on the path to betray Theresa. They meet with her brother, Theresus, and try to work together. Man. The goal is for Babel to fall, so Originium can consume the lands, and their civilization can survive.
Okay. Holy dude. I didn't come up with this. I'm pretty sure I saw this from a comment section somewhere. Today, I went hiking up a mountain. I grew tired, so I stopped for a rest, and I noticed an old man sitting on a rock nearby. So I asked him, "Where are we?" He didn't answer. He simply pointed towards this video. And it was only then that I knew I had reached the peak. Genuinely though, I can't wait to experience it for myself, the story of Babel, because everything that we see about it and just the way that it's written is exactly what I love about media. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I wish more stories could tell. These kind of emotional moments and these sort of turmoils that you understand from all perspectives, but goddamn, you're so glad that you're not a part of it. It's just fascinating to me to observe the decisions that have been made. And I guess I just enjoy observing people in general. And hey, I guess that extends to why I make reaction content. It's because I enjoy watching reaction content. People are just fascinating. And so incredibly, impossibly complex. And I don't think we'll ever fully understand even ourselves.
Destroy Babel, scatter her followers. Let Theresa in on your plans. Unify the Sarkaz under a Kazdal ruled by the military commission.
She and I have never relied on the charity of our enemies in the course of leading Kazdal to where it stands today. It is true that this war will only end with the decisive defeat of one of us. But you should not be the one to propose it. Proceed. Tell me more of why you would make this request. Evil spirit of an age long gone.
Fitting.
You already know. There are no surprises here. Considering the near 200 years you and Theresa spent working together, you should be able to guess. I seek the expansion of Originium. Babel's struggles will only prolong the dying gasps of this land, Theresus. No matter if you resist it or accept it, Originium will take on myriad forms, drawing all of creation into her embrace. Have you ever looked up at the sky? Beyond that sky, far beyond the twin moons, there is a place that we would once return to, where we would sleep peacefully. But I am the only one left, here speaking with you. In the course of the Sarkaz's eternal search for the remains of dead gods to fend off your enemies, have you ever wondered, why did those gods die? The burden I bear is greater than the future of the Sarkaz.
Okay, I guess that was the line where he mentioned that he had basically killed those gods. Or maybe he was referring to, you know, a place of sleep being a death by the observers. But man, like, basically suggesting that you had killed gods before is like one of the coldest lines you could drop. And in this fashion, probably one of the coolest ways to deliver it, while also being incredibly tragic.
I must destroy some things to create a ladder I hope for. I will do it. It's all I can do. I've already hesitated for far too long.
Destroy some things to create a ladder. You speak lightly of sacrifice.
Nothing light here, Theresis. Believe me when I say you couldn't even conceive of what I've been through.
You could say that it's somewhat similar if we're going by the whole forest and lumberjack thing, and it's like controlled burning of a forest in order to let it regrow anew so that new roots can sprout and stuff like that. That's probably what he has to tell himself. The problem that occurs from that is when you're not burning trees, you know, it's actual living beings that are suffering because of decisions that you're making right now.
And where do I see your sincerity for our cooperation? I require an even more direct means to advance this war to the next stage. If you wish for the Babel members to be spared, then so be it. The military commission promises you that as long as Babel concedes defeat and departs Castell, we will not exterminate those who desert or surrender. But you know what you must do in return. You know what I ask of you. If you truly wish to save the many who stand by your side,
Teresa,
make them willingly admit defeat and surrender to me. Then slay their king. Destroy some things to create a ladder.
Thesis only agrees if the Doctor creates an opening to kill Theresa. Her being assassinated is the only way for Babel to fall and the Sarkos to be unified under his banner. And Oracle, with no other choice, agrees. They lead the assassins to Theresa. She is able to kill them all, but is bleeding to death and given just a bit more time, will die. However, she reaches out to Oracle and knows that, despite the betrayal, they don't truly want this. She knows the sincerity and love they have for the world, Kelshi and Amia, but their memories are chaining them, taking them prisoner and not letting them do what they truly want.
And so the memory wipe.
Theresa decides to take out the Doctor's memories with her art.
Decide on your
and
own.
Erase them. To finally free the Doctor from the chains their memories and Priestess's influence is putting on them. To let them decide how they want to live and what they want to spend their life working towards.
Your memory has gone, and your soul reborn. A truly terrible trick. But they underestimate your benevolence, your desire for victory. They underestimate us, and what makes Terra so tenacious. Doctor, allow me to call you by this name for the last time. This is my little revenge on you, and also my final gift to you. Memory does not shape who you are. So, with your original self, live again on this land. See the world. Feel the various emotions life brings.
Anything else with the
Meet
Persona
many
music,
people
bro?
of Terra.
Right now?
Perhaps your journey will start in suffering, and you may never manage to escape the murky moon shadows of this land. But you will always get to see the sun rise. I trust you will find a new solution, one that is truly your own. An answer that sounds just like the murmur Captain I once heard. A most moving answer.
That is why the Doctor has amnesia. It was Theresa's way to save the Doctor, for them to be free. She wants them to come to their own conclusions about the world and how its future should be, and we haven't yet gotten that answer. In the story, we can vaguely choose who we side with, like small dialogue choices for what we want, and even in an ARG you can debate Priestess and the results show if you side with her or Theresa, and depending on it, a cutscene in Chapter 15 changes a bit, but the story is yet to definitively say where the Doctor lands. They're slowly getting back their memories, but we don't know if they will choose to continue the project or if they'll let Terra fight for their own fate. even though the chances of survival are slim. However, in the collab, we finally hear an answer from the Doctor when it comes to the fate of Terra, saying, "There's no such thing as absolutes when it comes to the value of life. Survival is the right of all civilization. It should never be up to others to define the worth of life." And that...
Holy shit. Yeah, and now I understand why we had to go through all the Babel stuff too, in order to really understand this line. This means that he has come to a conclusion, and that he believes everybody should have the right to live. Such a powerful line if you know the story, but if you're just like going through the event, it's like, oh yeah, sure, I agree.
line right there is probably one of the most important ones when it comes to what is going to happen in the rest of Arknights' main story. Because while I would be surprised if, after everything, the Doctor betrayed Terra and sided with Priestess, we're still yet to get the clearest single line without the possibility of player choice to change it, which shows they're against her. Now, on the other side, I wouldn't take this line as canon because this is a collab and not canon to Arknights.
True,
but it still shows the care for Arknights' story that was put into this. This isn't a collab that happened because they thought it would be good for profit margins. PM didn't just clock in and go, people in our fandom kind of fucks with Arknight. Let's collab with Arknight and do some very uninspired story for it, like you could see in so many different gacha games.
Well, no, if the creator of the entire project is that big of a fan of Arknights and you're going to do a collab together, I think you're probably going to do the best that you possibly can with that collab. You want to tell a really fucking good story, because both of your series are known for that. Now, obviously, Suno brings up a good point. It is a collab, so who knows what may happen in the decision-making for how the story is going to end or where it's going to lead. But ultimately, still a very powerful moment for people who know the lore.
Cough Persona 5. Cough Cough, the most pumpkin spice latte collab every gacha wants to milk. It isn't a bland and boring story where Dante and the gang get teleported to the land ship and fight some Originium slugs while big chilling with the group, which, actually, not gonna lie, part of me would have kind of been down to see that, because the only criticism I got for the collab when it comes to the story is the lack of character interactions. Like, there's some funny ones of Kelshi and Foss being hyper nerdy, Dante scaring Ami with wanting her to pop the sinners, Scotty immediately doing that, but there wasn't too many.
Of course,
so
Scotty
the central
would.
plot of the collab being around the right for people to survive and spend their life as they want to is so deeply connected to the story Arknights is telling. Either Arc 1, 2, or 3, Babel, Path of Life, Grand Overture, Lone Trail, whatever. It is the most central part of Arknights in the collab. If the plot around it were to be made into an actual story for Arknights, would still be incredibly fitting. You can tell it was made with the current story in mind. If the cantos in Limbus are meant to make you understand the sinner better, this collab is focused on making you understand the world of Arknights and the weight behind the morality of the main story.
Okay. So just for some clarification, from my current understanding of what's happening here, Sinner is basically the same thing as Operator in Arknights, and the cantos are like the side stories or like character stories for each particular Sinner. That's kind of what I'm assuming right now. Obviously, I don't know enough about Limbus to really know, though.
Especially when it comes to Mayors. She wants to give humanity a chance to survive, but knows, deep down, that the Seaborn, while giving that chance, are inherently flawed. She, just like a lot of characters in the story, are looking for a chance to survive and make the world a better place. What she goes through in this event is covered a lot in Arknights' story. It's one about people wanting to lessen the hardship of life and make the world just a little bit better or a fair place. Well, at least that's one of the topics covered in it, and this collab perfectly shows it. Yet at the same time, it's still enjoyable for people who haven't touched Arknights, and as a player of both, I loved it. But now for another part that I
mean, even without any of this context, if I, for some god unknown reason, decided to play during this collab, I still think if I had paid attention to the story, that I would appreciate the story for what it was trying to say. But obviously, knowing the grander picture kind of enhances that immensely.
think they went above and beyond on, let's talk about the egos. I am so glad they did not just assign these based on vibes. Like, they could have just taken the easy way out and went, Merso is very Changyu coded cause big man. Wheatus is very Degenbrecher coded cause mommy. Dawn is very neural coded cause night and same voice actress. And Gregory is very W coded because cockroach. Not gonna lie, kinda want to see that last one though. But the egos fit honestly a little too well. Like Scotty Ishmael. Spoilers for Undertide. Skip to here if you don't want to be spoiled.
Oh, hey, going
but
through
also,
it right now.
this is a spoiler that is already well known in the community because we got a unit that is this spoiler already in the game. But
Skalter?
after the Abyssal Hunters killed the firstborn, Asharmala, it wiped out their forces. There were only 4 left after the battle, and when Scotty dealt the killing blow to Asharmala, she was very weakened and had cuts all over her body. And at that moment, the
this I
blood
know.
of the firstborn entered into Scotty. It then mixed with her seaborn cells, and now there is the possibility that Scotty could awaken Asharmala and essentially revive it if it takes over her body. You know what that sounds like? Ishmael at the wreck of her former ship. Going on an expedition she was forced to by Ahab, and after the ship was swallowed by the Palid Whale, she had nothing. But over time, the influence of what Ahab did to her slowly took over Ishmael, essentially consumed her. And if Ahab had gone her way, Ishmael would have become a shell of her, like Asharmala was Scotty. Minus the lesbianism. Scotty didn't really have a Keequeg in her story. That's more Spectre and Irene's territory. Then there's Gregory with Mlynar, and yes, I know it's pronounced Mwynar, but I do not care. I think Mlynar sounds
Okay, honestly, I didn't know it was pronounced that way. I've always heard people say Mlynar. I also pronounce that because I just don't know the proper pronunciation. Mwynar? That being said, I do have him in my account, and he is a goated unit. Super strong. This is really good. As long as he's not reading his newspaper. Just gotta wait for him to get his fill of the news.
better, I will put extra emphasis on the L. But this one, there are some differences in approach, but the destination of how they feel is fairly the same. Gregor, as we all know, hates war. He saw what it does to people and hated that he was a cog in the machine of propaganda that fueled
So
it
that's where
and
they
ruined
connect.
so many people's lives. And Mlynar does have a similar situation when it comes to propaganda and being viewed as a symbol of the war. He was a legendary knight, also the son of a national hero for Cashmeres, a nation heavily founded around knights. However, his view of knights' pride and chivalry was torn to shreds after his older brother and sister-in-law went on a mission and vanished under very suspicious circumstances. He grew to lament Cashmeres and how it views knights as fuel for propaganda, either for the use of them in tournaments to take sponsors, or for their patriotism when, in reality, Cashmeres is corrupt and far from the image they try to
It's a husk
exude.
of its former
And
self.
Gregor lost people he's close with too. Some speculate he even lost his sister. But they're both viewed as noble symbols for war. Gregor hates it because he despises war, and Mlynar hates it because he believes chivalry and knightly glory are all facades to what reality actually holds.
I haven't really gone through his story yet, but every single time I lose a battle and Mlynar here, or Mlynar, sort of reprimands me, I feel bad every single time. He's like, have you ever thought about the consequences of losing a war? It's like, oh, goddamn, I'm sorry that I suck at tower defense. No!
But then there's the ego I'm most excited to talk about, Kelshi Faust. Just want y'all to know, on my video I made some years ago talking about which center would get what identity for this collab, I called this shit. I was a pioneer. Project Moon specifically went to that video for inspiration on this. Probably not, considering it's the most
Definitely.
obvious fucking choice for an ego, but that's neither here nor there. I will take full credit for it, you are welcome. But Kelshi is a very difficult character to explain, so this will be spoilers up till chapter 15 of Arknights. Skip to here if you don't want to be spoiled. Kelshi is a creation of Priestess and Oracle. She was known as Amma 10, and her purpose is best shown in the cutscene that plays in the game if you disagree with Priestess in the debate ARG. In it, Oracle gave Amma 10 the name of Kelshi, believing that Amma 10 is just a codename, a mechanical identifier, and she should have a true name. Then they told her to protect Terra as they slept in the sarcophagus, to make sure life on it can thrive. While it may be arrogant to interfere with a civilization, this is their last chance. They cannot fail. They need Terra to progress to a point where there is a chance to survive the observers. And Oracle gave the job to Kelshi. With her Gemini cycle, she can live forever. And on that path where she watches over Terra, she can guide them. But Oracle stops, looks at her, and thinks about the mission they are putting her on, and instead says, "No. Forget what I just said, Kelshi. All of it. Go, Kelshi. Look around you, then see what lies by the most distant of mountains. Go seek what forms existence takes.
Discover life.
I must go back. Wake me up when you need to. Kelshi, I hope you'll... Or maybe I should say, The only mission I assign to you now is this. Find yourself. Search for traces of life. Search for hope and a future. Kelshi, go find your own answer.
It's like lines like this that made me think Oracle originally would have always gone with this choice, right? Like, life has the right to live. Can't go around deciding whether or not people get forcefully put into an Originium woods or not. But of course, even back then, there was always the existential question of, if we don't do this, then everything dies. Definitely, like, one of the most fascinating main characters in any gacha game I've ever played.
The final mission she was assigned was to find the meaning of life. That is what her creator asked her to do, and she spent over thousands of years wandering the land in search of it. And she came to love Terra. While the land and the people may have flaws, she came to love it and oppose Originium to ease the suffering of the land, going against the way to survive the observers, but it was the choice she made for her own life, from her own answer. And this culminated in Kelshi making plans to resist and, with the help of Monster, fought against Priestess after she broke free from Rhodes Island. But beating Priestess was impossible because she has full control of Originium. And with that power, she manipulated the Originium crystals on Kelshi's body to consume her, then shattered them to the wind.
Jesus.
Kelshi found her meaning in life to protect Terra because of her love for it, and fought till her death for that. But sometime after Rhodes Island fell, the Doctor and Amiya had taken hold of the crystal Monster left behind. They went out into a field to see what would happen with it, and then life sprung forth from it. Monster, now human. And this
Oh, so that's how Monster becomes the way that she is as a unit. I see.
is who Phos' ego is actually based on. She's not meant to be Kelshi in it, she is Monster. There's two reasons that show it. One is that Kelshi appears in the ego cutscene and commands Phos rather than Phos commanding Monster. And the other is the line of the ego.
가득한 여정, 멈추지 않는 시대에서 희망과 미래를 찾아 스스로 답을 구하시길.
That
Find
is
your
what she
own
said to
answer.
Monster in a voice recording that would play in the event Monster was freed from the Gemini cycle that kept Alma 10 alive throughout her thousands of years going throughout Terra. She was given the ability to be free and find her own answer to life, and gave that possibility to Monster. It was honestly one of the most beautiful scenes in Arknights, and I'm glad it was brought up here for the ego. And the connection for the ego is that Monster knows everything about the world from the eyes of Kelshi, but she hasn't lived it all. Like Phos knows seemingly everything from the Gesellschaft, but hasn't lived it. Now from there isn't too much more to expand on because we don't know that much more about Phos. Her Canto is still yet to happen, but I'm sure when it does, this ego is going to be even more fitting. And for the last one,
For you Limbus Company players out there, has it already happened yet? Or maybe it's not even in Limbus Company, but a different Project Moon game.
to break down Honglu with the ego for Ling. The connection is that they both like poems. Okay, so that is it for the video. Glad y'all came out. And okay, I'm just kidding, but like, okay, to be honest, I really don't remember anything about Ling. Like, I read her event, read the event after that. Bro had like 30 lines collectively. She doesn't talk. I know there is apparently a connection to Buddhism and Taoism, but the only thing I know when it comes to that is the one world religion class I took in grade 11, so I'm sorry. I'm sure there's a connection, but I do not know it.
Hey, that is fair. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and it's okay to admit it. Considering the deeper connection that all the other ones have had, I'm almost certain that there's something more here. And as a Buddhist myself, I could maybe try and parse it together. But I will say that Buddhism itself also has just so many different, I don't know what you'd call it in English, like facets, like schools, like different beliefs, depending on whatever country that you're in. And even in those countries, there's going to be subsections to things. So it's hard for me to say, because I only know what I know too.
Most I can say as of now is that Ling is either at there or very close to enlightenment. So she feels like what Honglu could be at the end of his journey. If he has just started accepting himself and accepting his emotions, Ling is what we can hope is the end destination after all is said and done. But aside from that, I fear there is not much more I can say when it comes to this connection because Ling is very much a recluse when it comes to her appearances in the story. But that is it for all of the breakdowns, and honestly the quickest way possible I could have done it. There was not a way to make this video shorter and explain all that I wanted to, which...
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
you had to go through the entire Babel arc in order for that line to really land, for people to truly understand what it means.
I'm actually kind of glad for, because I fucking adore Arknights, so any chance I have to praise it and talk about it, I am more than willing to take. But before playing the collab, I was worried it was going to be bland, boring, or something that I just think about and go, oh,
hey,
yeah, that
glad
collab
that it
was
wasn't.
nice. But Project Moon blew all of those worries out of the water. They made a story that is such a love letter to Arknights while still being incredibly enjoyable to people who haven't played it. And that is so hard to do. But if you have played it, the collab evolves into more than just a great crossover for Limbus, but something that hits deeply to the main plot. I would have liked seeing more character interactions between Rhodes Island and Limbus, and hell, maybe just seeing more Arknights characters in general. But aside from that, this collab was a masterpiece to me. I'm glad it came from a place of love.
Now, obviously, I don't know about the whole gameplay side of things or whatever else was associated with the collab and how that was handled, but I feel like at the very least story-wise, if Arknights is able to do this with all the other collabs that they've done before in the past, then I think all those collabs would be kind of peak. And I genuinely hope they do it. If they don't, then I hope they do so in the future. Well, I did mention it earlier in the video. Not gonna lie, dudes, I did not read the Ave Mujica story stuff because it just wasn't something that interested me personally. So I can't really comment on that, whether that was at all to this sort of quality. But regardless, I'm super happy for people who love both Limbus Company and Arknights, because this collab must have been like the greatest thing ever. And as you guys said, also a really good overview as to like why people love Arknights and the storytelling between both Arknights and Limbus Company coming together to really show their own unique identities and yet how similar they can be, and just really showcase the strength of both series at the same time. But yeah, dudes, that's gonna be it from me today. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. I'll catch you guys in the next one.